Welcome to Dreamy Tales, a place where gentle, relaxing stories will guide you into a deep sleep. On this channel, we'll be sharing soothing stories to help you unwind and forget the worries of the day. If you enjoy these peaceful moments, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you won't miss any of our bedtime tales. Let's create a space of relaxation together each night. Now, before we dive into tonight's story, let's take a few moments to relax your body and mind. Find a comfortable spot to sit or lie down. Gently close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, feeling the fresh air filling your lungs, and slowly exhale, letting the tension in your body gradually melt away. Repeat this 3 more times. With each breath, feel yourself becoming more relaxed and ready to enter the magical world of stories. Now, loosen your shoulders, gently massage your face, and release any remaining tension. Pay attention to any areas in your body that still feel tight, maybe in your neck, back, or legs, and gently let them relax. Next, we'll do a short guided visualization. Imagine yourself in a beautiful garden under the night sky, with the soft moonlight shining down. You can hear the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the sound of water flowing gently in the distance. Feel the cool breeze brushing against your face. Now that your body and mind are relaxed, let's step into tonight's story. But before we begin, remind yourself that you deserve these moments of relaxation, and let go of all worries as you listen to each word. And now, as you are fully relaxed, let's begin our journey into tonight's tale. Allow my words to guide you into a world of dreams and serenity. Relax and listen slowly. Serene stood on the snowy street, her face lifted to the sky, marveling at the delicate snowflakes that gently kissed her cheeks. The cold breeze danced around her, carrying the scent of winter through the crisp air. For a moment, she allowed herself to be immersed in the magic of the season, watching as the tiny flakes swirled around her like a dance of nature's own. It was a rare feeling of serenity, one that felt almost too precious to disrupt. She took a deep breath, savoring the pure silence that surrounded her, as if the whole world had paused to witness the winter's quiet beauty. Turning her head, she glanced over at Julian, who was standing nearby, his gaze focused on the path ahead. He was her companion for the evening, and though they had only known each other for a short while, there was a sense of ease between them, a quiet understanding that made every moment feel special. "What should we do next?" Celine asked, her voice soft but curious, her excitement barely contained. Julien turned to her with a smile that lit up his face, his eyes twinkling with the promise of adventure. "How about we head over to the ice skating rink?" he suggested, his tone filled with enthusiasm. The thought of watching the graceful movements of skaters gliding effortlessly across the ice seemed like the perfect way to spend the evening. The air was thick with the warmth of anticipation, and Celine felt a wave of joy wash over her. She nodded eagerly, thrilled by the idea. There was something undeniably festive about ice skating during the holiday season, especially when the night was as magical as this one. Julian, ever the gentleman, extended his arm to her with a charming smile. Celine accepted his offer, her hand lightly resting on his arm, feeling an unspoken connection between them. Together, they walked down the snowy path that led them away from the lively zoo area, the lights of the park flickering in the distance. The journey to the rink was filled with the sound of their footsteps crunching in the snow, the air around them cool and crisp. As they passed through the park, Celine couldn't help but admire the festive decorations that adorned the trees and lampposts. Twinkling lights draped over the branches of the towering trees, casting a warm glow on the snow-covered ground. Everything around her felt enchanted, as if they were walking through a holiday card come to life. As they neared the rink, Celine felt a sense of awe wash over her. The sight before her was beyond anything she had imagined. The rink, illuminated by soft, glowing lights, shimmered like a pearl in the center of the park. It was as if time had slowed, allowing her to fully appreciate the beauty of the scene before her. All around the rink, white Christmas trees, crafted entirely from lights, stood tall and elegant, their stars twinkling brightly against the night sky. They were arranged in clusters, creating a sense of wonder and magic. The entire scene felt like a living painting, a moment frozen in time. The rink itself was nestled within a circle of fairy-lit trees, and beyond them, the tall buildings of the city skyline towered overhead, their lights glistening like stars in the dark sky. Celine had the distinct feeling that she was inside a giant snow globe, watching the world unfold from within its shimmering glass walls. It was a surreal experience, one that made her feel both small and connected to the beauty of the world around her. The soft strains of a festive carol drifted through the air, and Celine's heart swelled with joy. It was a classic holiday tune, one she had heard many times before, but tonight it felt different, filled with a sense of anticipation and excitement. As she stood there, taking in the scene, a line of skaters glided onto the rink, their movements as fluid as the snowflakes that gently fell from the sky. They wore matching satin dresses, their bodies shining with sequins that caught the light, and atop their heads were tiaras and fascinators, each one unique, adding a personal touch to their elegant ensemble. Celine watched, mesmerized, as the skaters formed a perfect line, their synchronized movements creating a seamless, flowing dance on the ice. With every graceful swoop and spin, they seemed to be telling a story through their motions, a story of joy and celebration. The air was filled with their laughter and the sound of blades gliding effortlessly across the ice. It was a beautiful performance, one that made Celine feel as though she was witnessing something magical, something that existed only in this perfect moment. Then, as if the performance wasn't already captivating enough, a second group of skaters entered the rink. These skaters were dressed in tuxedos, their movements just as fluid and graceful as those of the first group, but their costumes added an extra touch of sophistication to the scene. They paired off, each skater finding a partner, and began their own intricate dance. It was a perfect contrast to the earlier performance, showcasing the elegance of the male and female skaters as they performed a flawless routine, swooping and spinning with practiced precision. The two groups of skaters seemed to flow together effortlessly, swapping partners and continuing the dance as if no pause had occurred. Their joy and ease were infectious, and Celine felt herself swept up in the performance. She marveled at their skill, imagining what it would be like to join them on the ice, moving with such grace and confidence. The snow continued to fall, adding a delicate layer of white to the already picturesque scene. Celine felt a sense of wonder and contentment as she watched the skaters finish their routine, their spins and twirls growing faster and more intricate as they approached the grand finale. The entire scene felt like a dream, and as the skaters took their final bow, Celine found herself clapping along with the other onlookers, thoroughly enchanted by the display. The music shifted, becoming brighter and more festive as a new carol began to play through the speakers, signaling the end of the performance. The skaters, now finished with their elaborate routine, seemed to float effortlessly off the rink, breaking apart into a free-form dance. It was as if they were no longer part of a planned performance, but simply enjoying the joy of skating, gliding freely across the ice with abandon. Celine watched in awe, imagining that if she were as skilled as they were, she might join them in their joyful movement. But for now, she was content to remain a spectator, enjoying the beauty of their dance from the sidelines. After a moment, she felt Julian's hand gently tap her shoulder. He stood there, his expression one of quiet excitement, his eyes gleaming with a new idea. "Would you like to take a spin on the carousel?" he asked, his voice filled with the same enthusiasm that had marked their earlier adventure. Celine's heart skipped a beat. The carousel had always been one of her favorite attractions in the park. There was something so nostalgic and comforting about it, something that felt timeless. She could already picture the brightly painted horses, their gentle rocking movements, and the laughter of children as they rode. It was the perfect way to cap off such a magical evening, and she couldn't imagine anything more delightful. She didn't hesitate for a moment. "Yes, let's go," she replied, a wide smile spreading across her face. With that, she skipped ahead, Julian trailing behind her as they made their way to the carousel, which was just a short distance away. As they approached the little round building that housed the carousel, Celine felt a rush of excitement. The soft glow of lights shining from the structure lit up the path before them, making the snow-covered ground seem to sparkle. It was as if the carousel itself was waiting for them, its music filling the air, inviting them to step inside and become part of its enchanting world. When they arrived, however, the scene before them was slightly unexpected. The carousel itself was at a standstill, the horses frozen in place, and there was no one around to operate it. For a moment, Celine wondered if they had arrived at the wrong time, or if the ride had already closed for the night. But Julian didn't seem to have any concerns. In fact, he looked quite confident, as if everything was exactly as it should be. He extended his hand with a flourish, his smile warm and inviting. "Pick any horse you like, Celine," he said, his voice filled with a playful charm. Celine's eyes widened in surprise. It had been so long since she had ridden on a carousel, and she couldn't remember the last time she had been allowed to choose her own horse. She stood for a moment, contemplating her choice, taking in the vibrant array of horses that surrounded her. Each one seemed to be more colorful and intricate than the last, their saddles and manes decorated in a riot of bright hues. There were black horses, brown horses, and even a few gray ones with spots. They were all so unique, and the choice was almost overwhelming. But after a moment of thought, Serene settled on a black horse with a deep, glossy coat that gleamed in the soft light. She couldn't resist the allure of its elegant stance and the way it seemed to call to her, inviting her to take a ride. With a sense of excitement bubbling inside her, she stepped forward and climbed onto the horse, feeling the smooth surface of the saddle beneath her hands. Julian, ever the gentleman, chose a gray horse nearby, his figure looking every bit like a cavalryman as he mounted the majestic animal. They exchanged grins, a silent understanding passing between them as they prepared to embark on their ride. The music that had been playing softly in the background suddenly became louder, filling the air with a lively melody that made Celine's heart race with anticipation. Without any announcement or signal, the carousel slowly began to move, its familiar rhythmic motions starting to come to life. Celine's black horse rose gently into the air, its movements smooth and steady as the carousel began to turn. The night air, now colder and more invigorating, swept across her face, carrying with it the scent of fresh snow and pine trees. It was a magical feeling, one that made her feel as though she were soaring through the air, surrounded by a world of lights and wonder. The carousel ride, though short in duration, seemed to stretch on forever, filling Celine with a sense of timelessness. The world around her blurred into a whirl of twinkling lights, the sounds of the carousel music mixing with the soft sound of her horse's hooves as it moved up and down in its gentle rhythm. Celine closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to be swept away by the magic of the experience. It was as if she had entered another world, a world where time had no meaning, and the only thing that mattered was the joy of the ride. When the carousel finally came to a stop, Celine felt a small pang of regret. She didn't want the ride to end, not yet. She had been so caught up in the moment, in the thrill of the ride and the beauty of the lights, that she couldn't bear the thought of it coming to a close. But as she opened her eyes, she saw that Julian had already dismounted and was standing beside her, smiling warmly. "Did you enjoy the ride?" he asked, his voice filled with warmth and affection. Celine nodded enthusiastically, her face glowing with happiness. "It was wonderful. I didn't want it to end." As they dismounted from the carousel, the night air felt even colder than before, but Celine wasn't bothered. The joy from the ride still lingered, warming her from within. She looked over at Julian, whose eyes were now twinkling with an idea that she couldn't quite decipher. Without saying a word, he took a step forward, offering her his arm once again, his smile broad and inviting. "Shall we continue our adventure?" Julian asked, his voice light and full of mystery. Celine hesitated for a moment, curiosity piqued by his words. She had thought they had seen all the magic the park had to offer, but there was something in Julian's expression that made her believe there was more waiting to be discovered. With a grin, she nodded, slipping her arm through his as they began walking once more, this time heading toward the northern part of the park. The path was quiet now, the noise of the city muffled by the thick blanket of snow that covered everything. The snow continued to fall gently from the sky, adding a touch of whimsy to the scene. Celine felt like she was walking through a fairy tale, the world around her bathed in soft moonlight and shimmering snowflakes. The tall trees lining the path seemed to stretch up to the sky, their bare branches dusted with snow, creating an ethereal canopy above them. They walked in silence for a while, the only sound being the crunch of their footsteps on the snow. Celine let herself be carried away by the tranquility of the moment, her thoughts drifting with the falling snow. The magic of the evening had already left a mark on her heart, and she didn't want it to end. She wanted to keep moving through this dreamlike world, where everything felt perfect and full of possibilities. After a while, Julian spoke again, his voice breaking the peaceful silence. "We're almost there," he said, his tone filled with excitement. Celine turned to him intrigued. "Where are we going?" Julian's smile deepened, his eyes sparkling. "To Belvedere Castle," he replied. "I think you'll find it quite enchanting." Belvedere Castle? Celine's mind raced. She had heard of it, of course. It was a grand, historic structure perched atop a hill in Central Park, offering breathtaking views of the park and the city beyond. But she had never visited it before. The idea of seeing it in the quiet of the night, with the snow falling softly around them, felt like another magical adventure. They continued their walk, the castle slowly coming into view as they approached the highest point of the park. The silhouette of the stone tower stood out against the dark sky, its sharp angles softened by the thick layer of snow that covered everything. It looked like something out of a fairy tale, grand and mysterious, a relic of another time. As they neared the castle, Celine felt a sense of awe wash over her. The building was more magnificent than she had imagined. It sat proudly on Vista Rock, its stone walls illuminated by soft, warm lights that made the castle appear to glow from within. The flag atop the tower fluttered gently in the breeze, adding a touch of elegance to the already breathtaking scene. Celine felt as though they had stumbled upon something secret and sacred, a place reserved only for those fortunate enough to be invited in. Julian, sensing her wonder, turned to her with a grin. "Do you like it?" he asked, his voice filled with satisfaction. Celine nodded, her heart swelling with excitement. "It's incredible. I can't believe we're here." He offered her a wink and gently guided her toward the entrance. The castle, it seemed, was open to them, as if it were waiting for their arrival. Julian led her up the snow-covered steps, the ancient stone steps creaking slightly underfoot as they ascended. As they reached the top, Celine's breath caught in her throat. There, waiting for her, was something she hadn't expected at all. A velvet chair, rich and deep in color, sat in the center of a small observation balcony. It was as though the chair had been placed there just for her, an invitation to sit and take in the beauty of the park below. The seat was surrounded by soft, glowing lights that cast a warm golden hue over everything. The sight was both calming and exhilarating, as if she were being welcomed into a world of elegance and wonder. But that wasn't the only surprise. Next to the chair, a stunning snow leopard sat, its body graceful and poised. The wildcat appeared completely at ease in this setting, its large paws tucked neatly under its body, its tail curled elegantly around its legs. The leopard's eyes were closed, as if it, too, was enjoying the serenity of the night. Serene blinked in disbelief. She had never seen anything so majestic in her life. The snow leopard seemed like a natural companion to the grandeur of the castle, as if it belonged in this royal setting. Its presence added a sense of mysticism to the entire scene, as though the animal itself were a guardian of the castle, watching over everything that transpired there. "Would you like to sit?" Julian asked, motioning toward the velvet chair. Celine hesitated for a moment, her eyes still on the snow leopard. Then, with a smile, she nodded. "Yes, I'd love to." She walked slowly toward the chair, feeling every inch like a princess about to take her place in a royal court. As she sat down, the leopard opened its eyes and looked at her, its gaze calm but curious. Celine reached out tentatively and stroked the soft fur of the animal, marveling at how warm and silky it felt under her fingers. The leopard seemed to appreciate her touch, its eyes half closing in contentment. A soft rustling interrupted the moment, and Celine turned to see one of the skaters from earlier approaching. The skater, a woman dressed in a sparkling dress, placed a tiara atop Celine's head, adjusting it carefully until it rested just so. Another skater, a man in a tuxedo, appeared beside her, offering Celine a soft, warm blanket for her lap. "Thank you," Celine said softly, feeling like she was living in a dream. The magic of the evening had only grown more intense, and she couldn't believe all that had unfolded before her. Celine wrapped herself in the warm blanket, feeling its softness against her skin as she settled into the velvet chair. The snow leopard beside her remained calm, as if it had always been there, an integral part of this magical night. She gazed out at the park below, her eyes tracing the contours of the snow-covered landscape, now bathed in the soft glow of the lights from the castle. The world seemed to stretch out forever, a quiet expanse of white and silver, interrupted only by the occasional shadow of a tree or the distant silhouette of a building. She took a deep breath, savoring the stillness of the moment. The soft, melodic sound of a clock chiming in the distance reached her ears. She didn't know where it was coming from, but the sound added to the enchantment of the evening. It was as if time itself had slowed down, allowing her to fully absorb the beauty around her. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by the sound of tiny, delicate footsteps. Celine turned to see a group of penguins waddling into view, their little feet pattering across the snow-covered ground. There was something utterly charming about them. The way they moved in a perfect circle, their flippers flapping with excitement. The penguins performed an intricate dance, splitting into two groups that formed a figure 8 pattern. Celine clapped her hands in delight, caught up in their infectious energy. It was a moment of pure joy. The kind of moment that seemed to exist only in the most magical of dreams. As the penguins finished their performance, they waddled off into the shadows, their antics leaving a trail of laughter in the air. Celine couldn't help but smile, the magic of the evening continuing to unfold in surprising ways. She turned to Julian, who had been watching her with a soft smile. He nodded toward the turtle pond, where a new spectacle was unfolding before their eyes. On the ice of the pond, the skaters from earlier had returned, now dressed in the same elegant outfits as before. Their movements were fluid and graceful as they skated in pairs, their twirls and spins creating a stunning visual display on the frozen surface. The ice was as smooth as glass, reflecting their every movement like a mirror. The skaters glided effortlessly across the pond, their intricate choreography filling the air with a sense of beauty and grace. Celine felt as though she were witnessing something extraordinary. It was as if the entire night had been designed just for her, each moment more magical than the last. She couldn't help but wonder if she was dreaming, if any of this could truly be real. But the sensation of the velvet chair beneath her, the warmth of the blanket, and the presence of the snow leopard beside her told her otherwise. This was no dream. It was a moment that she would treasure forever. As the skaters finished their routine, they took a sweeping bow, their movements synchronized in perfect harmony. The crowd, which consisted only of Celine and Julian, erupted in applause, their appreciation for the performance ringing out in the quiet of the night. The skaters, their faces beaming with pride, skated off the ice and disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a sense of wonder in their wake. Just as Celine thought the night couldn't get any more magical, she saw something even more unexpected. A line of carousel horses appeared, trotting across the great lawn in perfect formation. They moved with elegance and precision, their bodies adorned with the same vibrant colors that had decorated the carousel earlier. The horses moved in a circle, mimicking the motions of the carousel itself, as if they were bringing the magic of the ride to life once more. Celine watched, mesmerized, as the horses danced around the lawn, their movements graceful and fluid. Then, as if in a choreographed finale, they all stopped in unison and bowed low, their front legs extended and their heads lowered in a sign of respect. Celine's heart swelled with joy at the sight, and she applauded with enthusiasm, her hands clapping together in appreciation. The horses, now finished with their performance, stood up straight and turned to face her. One by one, they trotted off into the woods, their hooves barely making a sound as they disappeared into the darkness. Celine watched them go, a sense of wonder lingering in the air. She had never seen anything like it before, and she wasn't sure she ever would again. As the last horse disappeared, Celine turned to Julian, eager to share her excitement. But when she looked back at him, she found him staring up at the sky. She followed his gaze, and what she saw took her breath away. High above them, in the dark sky, the angel from Bethesda Terrace had appeared once again. She was hovering in the air, her wings spread wide, backlit by the shimmering light of the moon. The sight was so ethereal, so beautiful, that Celine felt as though she were witnessing something otherworldly. The angel's hands were outstretched, but instead of water pouring from her vessel, a shower of sparkling snowflakes began to fall from the sky, swirling around them in a magical storm. The snowflakes were unlike any Celine had ever seen. They sparkled and glistened as they drifted down, their tiny forms catching the light as they fell. It was as though the angel herself was creating this snowstorm, filling the air with the purest of magic. Celine closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the snowflakes brush against her face, their cool touch sending a wave of peace through her. She opened her eyes again and turned to Julian, a smile spreading across her face. "This is incredible," she whispered, almost in awe. But when she looked around, she realized something unexpected. The entire park had become covered in a fresh blanket of snow. It was as if the snowflakes had transformed the landscape, making it look even more magical than before. The world had been transformed into a winter wonderland, and she felt like she was living inside a dream. As Celine spun in the fresh snow, her arms outstretched to embrace the magic of the moment, a sense of freedom washed over her. She felt weightless, as though the falling snowflakes were lifting her, carrying her away to a place where nothing mattered but the joy of the present. The world around her seemed to fade into the background, and all she could feel was the cool rush of the air and the sparkling sensation of the snow as it danced around her. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the snowstorm envelop her. The sensation was indescribable, a mixture of exhilaration and serenity that filled her soul. She wanted to hold on to this moment forever, to keep spinning through the snow, forever lost in the beauty of this enchanted world. The moonlight above her bathed everything in a soft, silvery glow, and the angel in the sky continued to shower the earth with her shimmering snowflakes. For a few moments, everything felt perfect. Celine couldn't remember ever feeling so alive, so connected to the world around her. But as the snow began to settle, the magic started to fade, and reality began to seep back in. She stopped spinning and looked around, a gentle sigh escaping her lips. She didn't want the night to end, but she knew it had to. This magical journey, this adventure that had begun with the first snowflake and continued with every moment since, was nearing its close. She turned back to Julian, her face glowing with joy. "I don't want this to end," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Julian, ever the calm and composed companion, smiled warmly. "It doesn't have to end just yet," he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "But all good things must come to a close eventually. It's what makes them so special." Celine nodded, understanding the truth in his words. As much as she wanted to stay in this magical place forever, she knew that the memories of this night would stay with her forever. And that, in itself, was enough to carry her through the days ahead. But before she could say anything more, something unexpected happened. The air around her began to shimmer, as if the very fabric of reality was bending and shifting. She blinked, trying to make sense of what was happening, but before she could process it, she found herself no longer standing in the snowy park, but lying in a soft, warm bed. The familiar scent of her room, wood and comfort, filled her senses. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, and sunlight streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. Celine's heart raced, and she sat up quickly, her mind scrambling to understand what had just occurred. Was it all a dream? The carousel, the magical skaters, the snowflakes, and the snow leopard. Had it all been a figment of her imagination, a product of her longing for something extraordinary? She looked around the room, searching for any sign that the magic had been real. But everything seemed exactly as it had been before. The only thing out of place was the faint scent of snow in the air, a reminder of the night she had just experienced. Her eyes landed on the small, delicate clock on the nightstand. The owl carved into its face seemed to be watching her, as if it knew the secret of what had transpired. She reached out to touch it, her fingers grazing the surface of the wood, and as she did, a shiver ran down her spine. It was as if the clock was alive, a keeper of memories that existed outside of time. Celine's gaze shifted to the other side of the room, where a familiar object caught her eye. There, hanging on the coat rack, was the fairy tiara she had worn at Belvedere Castle the night before, and next to it, hanging neatly on the wall, was the soldier's feathered cap. Her breath caught in her throat. She had thought it was all a dream, but here were the physical remnants of her adventure: the tiara, the cap, and the sword she had seen earlier. She rushed over to the coat rack, her heart pounding in her chest, and carefully lifted the tiara from its hook. It sparkled in the soft light, just as it had the night before. She ran her fingers along the smooth, jeweled surface, and for a brief moment, she could hear the soft melody of the carousel music in her mind. With a sense of awe and wonder, Celine turned to look at the soldier's uniform hanging on the wall. The sword that had been resting beside the costume was now propped up next to it, as if someone had carefully placed it there. She reached out and touched the sword's hilt, feeling its cool metal beneath her fingertips. It was as if the soldier had left it behind, as if he had truly been a part of her magical night. But there was more. As Celine glanced around the room, she noticed something else. Something small but significant. A single snowflake, perfectly formed, sat gently on the windowsill. Its edges were delicate and intricate, shimmering in the morning light. Celine's heart skipped a beat. It was as if the snowflake had followed her home, a reminder of the adventure she had just experienced. Celine stood there for a moment, taking it all in. She didn't know what to make of it. Had the magic truly been real, or had it all been a dream? She wasn't sure. But one thing was certain. Something extraordinary had happened that night. Whether it was a dream or reality didn't matter. The memories, the feelings, the magic. They would stay with her forever, and as she looked out the window, watching the sunlight filter through the trees, Celine realized that her life would never be the same again. The magic of that night had changed her in ways she couldn't yet fully understand. But she knew, deep down, that it had shown her something important. That magic existed, not just in dreams, but in the world around her. And she would carry that magic with her wherever she went.